we have to actually do a little triage to make sure the most critical and most essential services are provided. The government does a lot of things. Of course, Republicans think that the federal government probably does too much, but there are a lot of critical things the federal government does that absolutely all of us would agree need to do. Our troops need to get paid. Our air traffic controllers need to make sure that people are flying safely and on time. We need low-income people to be able to access the food services that are provided by the federal government. There are critical things that need to be saved. We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for being here. Yesterday, President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we'll be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very effective, and the Democrats, they are going to be Democrats. Has the administration asked agencies to target federal workers who they believe to be Democrats in these reductions of forces?
We're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. We're targeting the people's government so that as much as possible of the essential services can continue to function. That is the question the president has asked the entire government, is fundamentally, okay, we're in a shutdown. That causes some problems. The troops aren't getting paid. There's nothing that we can do about that while the government is shut down. But there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during this shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest. If this thing drags on for another few days or, God forbid, another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so the essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have foisted upon the administration.
So what did he mean by they're going to be Democrats? He said they're going to be Democrats.
You've laid out a lot of the pain and problems that would come with a Democratic shutdown, and yet in the Oval Office yesterday, the president said that a lot of good could come from a shutdown. So square that circle. Which is it, a Democratic-caused crisis or a Republican opportunity for reform?
Well, I think all the president is saying, Phil, is that he wants to make sure the American people's government functions as well as it can, despite the fact that we're in a shutdown. We're going to have to make things work. And that means that we're going to have to triage some certain things. That means certain people are going to have to get laid off. And we're going to try to make sure that the American people suffer as little as possible from this shutdown. That's what the president is saying, is that, yes, this is a bad thing. Obviously, the president is trying to reopen the government, but we're going to make things work as well as we possibly can, given the constraints that we have.
And then on those policy differences for the discussion and the negotiations to come later, during the Biden administration, Democrats twice voted to expand these Affordable Care Act tax credits. But those were supposed to be temporary, and they were slated to expire at the end of the year. As you sort of crack the door open to negotiation at a later date, would the party that ran on defunding Obamacare really negotiate about potentially expanding Obamacare?
Well, Phil, what we've said to the Democrats is that we're willing to have a conversation about how to ensure that Americans continue to have access to health care, and frankly, they should have access to better health care at a lower cost. We inherited a mess of a health care system from the Biden administration. It's why the president has worked so hard on the most favored nation status for prescription drugs. It's why we care so much about lowering the cost of prescriptions and why we're doing everything else. We're willing to have that conversation, but I think it's important to bracket the health care policy conversation because it's separate from the government shutdown. We think that we can open the government and then have the conversation about what best healthcare policy to fit the needs of the American people. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to accomplish. We've got to reopen the government first. Now, Karoline, I don't know how you do this, how you actually choose people, because I don't know 90% of the names in here. Is it just who's the best dressed? Okay, I really like your shirt. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You are President of the Senate. Can you talk about what you're doing, what the administration is doing to try to get other Senate